way too expensive a hobby. Can't do it. Can't deal with it. I am into way too much nerd stuff already, and you know what? Yu-Gi-Oh! Is expensive enough. But have you seen this shit? Warhammer 40K is a long-running franchise based around a tabletop game where you use miniatures to simulate gigantic battles set in a dystopian future. It spawned board games, role-playing games, video games, movies, novels, and even full studio albums. I don't get it either. When I started going to a game store around me for Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals, my eyes would always drift toward the massive Warhammer wall that they have up because all of the designs and shit are just so cool. I would see people whip out their awesome minis on a free table and start measuring shit out, and it was just all so fascinating to me. I knew I wanted to get into this franchise because this is the kind of stuff I just unabashedly love. The other thing that caught my eye was the price tag. The price of these figures is the biggest barrier of entry for me right now. As awesome as all the minis look, the thing that really interests me is the game itself. Now I've gotten my friends into a lot of things, but Warhammer is where almost all of them draw the line. I guess it's just easier to convince them to buy a bunch of cheap cardboard to build a deck for Yu-Gi-Oh! Than it is to make them commit a bunch of money into models that they have to build and paint themselves for a game they may not even like. But I still wanted to experience this franchise in some way, so during a Steam sale, I bought a game that I've been eyeing for almost a decade at this point. Warhammer 40K Space Marine is a game that released in 2011, aiming to introduce a wider audience to this massive world. Despite the relative popularity of the franchise, the game had an uphill battle right out of the gate. First up is the fact that this game came out during a period where the market was oversaturated with third-person shooters, so the developers needed some way to stand out from the competition of big dumb shooters starring Space Marines. There was also the developer THQ, who was inching closer into the fires of bankruptcy with each passing day. So did Relic Entertainment manage to make a fun game despite the relative hardships of the gaming market at the time? That's what we're here to find out. This is Warhammer 40K Space Marine. Whoa! Right off the bat, this game is showing off exactly the right things. This menu has more personality than half the games that released during this generation. I went into this game hoping to understand why the world of Warhammer was so appealing, and before even starting the campaign, I see this big buff dude just absolutely wrecking this orc shit. And that's it, I'm already hooked. Sometimes it takes me a while to want to fully commit to a game, but this right here, you got me to the end credits already, baby. This guy's an Ultramarines captain, so a little bit above your usual Space Marine fare. I wonder how much just a single mini costs, and it's $30?! These are so cool. A problem that many games have is trying to show off this massive world that end up just feeling generic or falling flat. Games like Halo and Gears of War kept their first games basic, but made sure to generate enough intrigue in the world itself through their presentation, leaving room to expand later with sequels and other media. Warhammer already has so much of its world built, so it's just a matter of writing a story that fits the setting rather than making a setting that fits their story. And off the bat, you can see how much of a difference that makes. The game is very heavy on terms and lore from the Warhammer universe, but the writers knew that this was also an introductory point for many of the people playing it. So the story itself keeps everything very simple. It doesn't go into the deep lore of the Imperium or the Orcs, it just drops you into this current situation and feeds you information as you need it. And as someone going in with absolutely no frame of reference for anything Warhammer, this was actually kind of fun and nice. There was no long-winded expository introduction, there was no dialogue that felt the need to over-explain what was going on. The story pretty much just goes, "Where are we dropping, boys?" and just starts letting you murder orcs immediately. I know like nothing other than I'm this badass from the Ultramarines, and I got my squad ready to do whatever it takes to protect this Forge world. The simplicity of the story actually grounded me more into this world than I was initially expecting. Doing more research into the lore of Warhammer, these Ultramarines are pretty much religious zealots where their religion is an undying devotion to the Emperor of Mankind, and prayer is... All of the dialogue is rather simplistic, but the sprinkling in of lore bits here and there elevates this game above most others. Whenever you die, the death quotes pretty much sound like a prayer to the Emperor of Mankind, and the Ultramarines' devotion to their creed makes the admittedly stupid dialogue feel less like a cliche and more like the badassery of these characters.
Sidonus, Leandros, respond.
Captain, the Inquisitor insisted you could not have survived.
Well, I did.
With any other game, I would say that this is the stupidest piece of dialogue, but you know what? For them, it's just another Tuesday. Our main character has 2 bullets lodged in his skull. How much cooler can you get? How much cooler can they get? Jumping into the gameplay itself, it's an interesting mixture of genres. On the one hand, you have a rather basic third-person shooter. Imagine Gears of War, but no cover system. It keeps the shooting sections at a fast pace because you're never reliably safe from the gunfire of your enemies, which doesn't seem like it would be a problem at first since most of the orcs are melee-based enemies. They like to swarm you, and there are so many of them charging up to you that there's absolutely no way your squad could possibly just shoot your way out of this. So boom! Instead of some wimpy melee attack, the game is just straight up a hack and slash at close range. You can even enter a rage mode that increases your attack, regains your health, and even slows down the aiming of your weapon. Just like the third-person shooter aspect, this is a very basic system. Each melee weapon has a slightly different combo that has different effects in battle, but the combos are all pretty much the same. You can combo using the X button to continuously melee and end your combo at any time with the Y button, usually leading to a stronger attack finisher the longer your combo goes on. By using the Y button, you end your combo, but you stun enemies and open them up for an execution, and for each execution you regain some of your health. No matter how you slice it, the game really isn't that complex, but the basic third-person shooter and the basic hack and slash game combines together to make a really solid system of mechanics. Battles are always dynamic because you have to juggle the enemies at close range and at a distance. The different classes of enemies are all dangerous in different ways, really forcing you to think through your interactions with all the different enemies in order to survive. The best encounters of this game honestly remind me to Halo's sandbox approach to enemy design. There are so many decisions you have to make on the battlefield all at once. What kind of orcs are in the battle? Do you pick them off at a distance, or do you let some of them come to you to regain some health? What weapons do you have, and how do they interact with the enemies around you? These are all decisions that you don't really get with shooters like this, but a lot of it is because of the blend with the hack and slash combat. The game even goes out of its way to make fun of cliches third-person shooters are known for. There's a section of the game where your team has to escort a high-value target using a squad of Valkyrie, these awesome warships used by the Imperium of Man. You know, I wonder how much these are as minis, because honestly, I would just love to buy them and paint them and, you know, like customize my own fleet of Valkyries, and one of them is $80 fucking. Why'd you have to make these look so cool, Games Workshop? The chapter starts off as your generic turret section, shooting orcs flying with rockets strapped to their backs. Amazing. But it's honestly a very generic part of the game that every third-person shooter in the 7th gen had. But suddenly, our big buff Space Marine breaks off the turret to deal with the enemies directly behind the craft. And I thought that was going to be the end of it, but then the ship crashed and I was thrown into a random battlefield where I had to kill a bunch of orcs and get picked back up. It was such an incredible scene that almost felt like it was making fun of most other turret sections. It wears its stupidity on its sleeve, and it's incredible.
You could not have survived.
Well, I did.
One piece of criticism I'm always seeing lobbed at this game is the fact that it's super linear, and yeah, it is. It's super linear. But I don't necessarily get how that's a bad thing. The entire campaign pretty much railroads you down a linear path that leads to large areas for encounters. And honestly, that is completely fine with me. Each encounter feels tailor-made for the arena that they were placed in, creating fights that feel really well designed. I would rather a game be super linear and exciting rather than a very open game where encounters feel like a random assortment of enemies placed on a map. It feels a bit like a board game, to be honest, clearing out the forces your opponent has on the map by employing your own strategy to combat what they've set up. And despite its linearity, I actually felt more surprised by battles than I do in most of the more popular third-person shooters. With the inclusion of a cover system, chest-high walls litter any given area you enter, so before even fully walking into a room, you know that you have a battle coming up. But the lack of a cover system in this game meant that I could be ambushed at any time in any setting. And there are moments of enemies randomly spawning in areas you can't reach for the sake of immersion. But it also forced me to be on my toes because it creates that atmosphere that enemies can spawn from anywhere. The only time I would say this was a negative was at the lack of bosses. With the range of combat abilities given to the player, I was really interested to see how bosses would be handled. There's a moment halfway through the campaign where you're about to fire a massive weapon and it seems like a boss fight's about to start. This massive orc war boss is challenging you, then literal demons! It takes away the boss fight and then... there are Chaos Space Marines? Oh my god, they're even cooler than regular Space Marines. This one has a guitar as a gun. Like pretty much everything shooty released on the 7th gen, Space Marine shipped with a multiplayer mode. I couldn't play every single game mode online because it isn't a game with a relatively massive online community. The most active playlist was the King of the Hill mode, and I could never find enough players for the team deathmatch or the co-op mode. Space Marine is a team-based shooter built around a class mechanic. It's from that era of online multiplayer that just pretty much stole everything from Call of Duty, but it honestly does a lot to differentiate differentiate itself and, dare I say, improve that style. When I was super into the multiplayer aspect of games, I used to love the Call of Duty system for locking different weapons behind your level. It would give you incentive to keep playing and trying your best to level up. However, as someone who doesn't care too much for that anymore, it just makes the game prohibitive to people that didn't start with the game at launch. Oh no, I waited 5 months for a price drop to play a game I wasn't 100% sure about. Please ruin my day with your beefy account with the golden versions of the best weapons in the game. Thank you! Space Marine has a system in place that keeps the game fun even when you're just starting out. While yes, right out of the gate you will have access to a pea shooter and pretty much nothing else, whenever you're killed you can use the loadout of whoever killed you. And holy shit, that is just amazing! You don't unlock other loadouts for a few levels, and you need to play even more to unlock the ability to customize your Marine. So when I started playing, my go-to strategy was to get killed by someone with a weapon I like, then take their shit and wreck them right back. It's amazing! It lets veteran players have the exact setup they know works for them, while also letting newer players experiment with different weapons and mechanics to find something that works for them when they eventually level up into it. In my long history as a gamer, I have to say, this is the best I've ever seen this system implemented. There will never be a moment where you're simply outgunned by the people with better equipment than you. There is always a chance you can turn the game around. There always comes a moment in a round of Halo or Call of Duty where I see the opposing team so far ahead of me that I go, yeah, we lost, I'm just gonna go in for the lulz now and just sharp myself gameplay-wise. But in this game, my team was able to stop an overwhelming victory at the last moments and catch up, all because we fought with all of our combined might knowing we could bounce back. Yeah, we still lost, but I never actually felt like there was a way to rubber band like that in any other game I've played. Honestly, the only thing I have to say disappoints me a bit about the multiplayer is the fact that it doesn't take advantage of the other half of the game's mechanics too well. The game was meant to mix the third-person shooter action with hack and slash gameplay, but there's literally never a time where a plasma shotgun doesn't outdo any melee weapon charging toward you. Like I said, the melee system is very good at a surface level. It's good when helping support your team, but if you're alone, you're screwed. Oh hey, that last game actually leveled me up so I can unlock customization, so let's see what they have. If there's one thing this game also nailed, it was the customization of your Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine. Imagine Halo Reach's customization, but even more in-depth. It truly feels like you're bringing your own minifigures to life in the game, right down to being able to paint each individual part of your armor a different color. And knowing that you can go and purchase these just makes it seem that much cooler. Like, cool enough to actually buy them. And you know what? They need their own Titans to be able to take down the opposition. And those Titans are big. They might need to be protected by some Valkyries, just in case of an aerial assault. And I need terrain to make them all look cool in case I play the actual game. And if I'm going to play the game, I should probably have all the books so I'm prepared to play at a moment's notice. That's the equivalent of 3 student loan payments.